Good evening, everybody. I hope you all are having a fantastic Wednesday evening. I know I am. And, while we sit here and we wait a moment, I just want to go ahead and say hello to all of you who, are taking time to join us. If, you're entering into the conversation, have a seat. And I'm excited about tonight because we're really going to be getting into the second part of our two-part series. And I'm going to take a moment to bring our wonderful guest back to the stage. She was with me last week, and I'm going to go ahead and bring her back tonight. So, Tana, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good, good. I'm glad you're back. Thank you so
Yes.
much. Looking forward to continuing this amazing conversation. But before we get started, I want to allow you to go ahead and take a moment, just kind of do your Jay Z and reintroduce yourself to
Yes.
everybody. And go ahead. I'm gonna step away. I'm gonna give you the floor.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, everybody. My name is Sultana Kareem. I am a private practice owner of Kareem Counseling Services, PLLC. I provide therapy services for individuals who reside, well, virtual therapy services for individuals that reside in both Maryland and Virginia. The services are focused specifically on perinatal mental health and reproductive health. So that's anything from perinatal mood anxiety disorders, like we talked about last time, um, mis- uh, pregnancy loss, infant loss, birth trauma, adjusting to parenthood, addressing childhood trauma, which often does occur, especially when
Hmm.
people are becoming parents themselves. And then the second part of the service that I provide is specifically related to trauma. It is those who want to address childhood traumas that are not necessarily in the pregnancy and perinatal period, those who are survivors of domestic and sexual violence, as
Hmm.
well as any types of loss.
Well, there you have it. So, uh, Sultana is a very well versed
Mhm.
counselor,
Yes.
and I want to make sure that we're clear. I know there was some who sometimes may think we're talking about a therapist,
Hmm.
but you actually help those counsel through these issues and
Hmm.
challenges. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Um,
Hmm.
and while that we're here, I really want to dive into this part of the series. I think it's really important. Like you say, we dealt with postpartum and perinatal and the mood disorders and anxiety disorders last week. But I
Hmm.
do believe that this is just as important when it comes to talking about domestic violence. And if you could just
Yes.
take a moment, yeah, really, it is because I think there's a lot of things that I think that run through uh, domestic violence. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
different things that happen. But before we really jump into that, could you just take a moment and just kind of give? I want to make sure we have a clear from a professional
Hmm.
point of view what domestic violence is.
So domestic violence often will be called like DV or intimate partner violence. Some people abbreviate it as IPV, dating abuse, relationship abuse. Essentially, it is a pattern behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate partner relationship.
Hmm. And when we talk about that, like today, so when we see that, um, we often I want to say, right off the bat, we associate that with physical abuse, and
Hmm.
in most
Yep.
cases. But I
Hmm.
want to go even a little bit further. Like, what are some other forms of abuse that a person may experience?
Yeah. So there are six. So I want to
Wow,
briefly
six?
go over the six.
Wow, I didn't even know that many. Wow, my goodness.
Yes. So physical abuse, like that we already know, is any unintentional, what is an intentional, unwanted contact with a person, where it causes some type of injury, disability, or death. And then we have emotional or verbal abuse. It's non physical behavior such as threats, insults, constantly monitoring someone or checking in on them, excessively texting, calling, humiliating them, intimidating them, isolating them, stalking them. We have sexual abuse is any behavior that pressures or coerces someone to do something sexually that they do not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Financial abuse is preventing them from keeping or getting a job. They have to be dependent on their partner financially, or have to ask for money or given allowances, um, or their partner will take their money that they earn if they do have a job. Um, and then there's digital abuse, the use of technology, whether it's texting, social media, to bully, harass, stalk, and
Mm-hmm.
intimidate their partner. And then there's stalking, when someone watches, follows, or harass their partner repeatedly and make them feel afraid and unsafe.
Okay. See, there was a whole lot there that, again, in the technical aspect,
Mhm,
you really we really don't know, and that's why I wanted to
mhm,
kind of lay these
yeah,
out. And the other part too, a lot of times when we sit here, and when I say we, I mean I'm talking about as a society. A lot of
mhm,
times, even in the media,
yep,
we really draw domestic violence issues, or I won't say draw. We kind of point at
mhm,
um, those that are economically disadvantaged.
yeah,
Um, I'm just curious to know, and this is two part.
mhm,
Your experience, like, I don't want to say how true that is, but is it really more even across the board than we realize, or the way that it's portrayed? And two,
mhm,
then the what is the word? I guess the perpetrator. Uh,
mhm,
is it always a man? Because again, that's the other part when we first think, like I said,
yep,
outside of those six that you brought, most of the time we just think physical, and we kind of draw it to a man automatically. So, like, if you can
mhm,
kind of talk about it, so I'm just curious to know from your experience.
yeah. Well, so I would say no, because domestic violence, it doesn't discriminate. So people of any age, race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, educational, even socioeconomic status
Mm,
can be victims or perpetrators of domestic violence.
okay.
And you're right, like social media does like highlight on certain groups of people,
Hmm.
but they fail to like look at everybody.
Right.
Something like you can make a lot of money and still experience domestic violence in your relationship because it's
Right.
unhealthy or abusive relationship.
and and it's, I don't want to say it's funny, but that's what I think of. So because it kind of draws back to part of it, because even those who make a lot of money,
Mm-hmm,
it's a power thing,
mm-hmm,
and that's the thing that kind of stands out for me, um, when I think of domestic violence, because a lot of times it's a power struggle,
yep,
or it's a control
it's both.
mechanism. Right. And I'm just curious, like, from, I don't know, from your trainings, or what you've learned, and your experiences, like, where does that come from though? Like, is that a learned behavior? Is that something that someone learns to, or grows to become? Like, how, like, where does that root in, or where's it rooted in?
For some cases, it's due to learned experience in
Mm,
childhood,
hmm.
because they may have not had healthy relationships and learned essentially when you're a child, you learn how to maneuver society through what you've learned from your parents, what they do, what they say, how they interact with each other, because
Right.
that has an impact on how your future relationships will look like and how
Mm,
you're able to, let's say, articulate your feelings.
hmm.
Or if you're like have unhealthy coping mechanisms, you may use substance to alleviate your symptoms.
Mm, hmm.
Whereas
And,
other cases, some people can be like they're manipulative, and they
mm,
that's a learned behavior
hmm.
too.
Hmm.
Or they could just be narcissistic, where they don't realize that what their behaviors are, or they're self-absorbed and think that everything and everybody should be
Hmm.
focused on them.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Look
so
at
many
me.
different
So,
ways like a person can um, either be a perpetrator of domestic violence.
and I think we had talked about it before, and I know going back in conversation, I think with our team, preparing some of these questions. I know one of them, and it's hard for me, and I don't understand why. And I again, this is just me, people talking.
Mhm.
I try to rationalize and understand, like, why is it so hard, um, for women per se, living in abusive relationship? Like, why is it so hard for them, to leave the relationship or leave their partner as a whole?
Yeah. Well, abusive relationships are extremely complex situations, and actually, it takes a lot of courage for a person to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, like when we talked about domestic violence, it's all about the power and control. So
Mm,
when a survivor tries to leave an abusive relationship, they may be threatened from their partner, with threatened with power and control that the partner already established with them over the relationship,
mm-hmm.
which may, and they may also like retaliate against them in different ways. So I'm going to list like several different ones. There's like 11 that I came
Whoa,
up with.
wow. Okay.
But I'm going to try to
Wow.
condense it down. So
Okay. We learned a lot here. Who knew?
yeah, there's
Okay,
so many
go
different
ready.
reasons because relationships are complicated.
Okay. Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
So the one is fear related to the consequence if they decide to leave a relationship, either out of the fear that their partner's actions or concerns over their ability to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they may grew up in an environment where they saw this type of relationship and that's all they know, so they don't understand or have the capacity to know like what is a healthy relationship, because what they essentially learned was you had to yell at your partner to get them to do things, or you had to threaten, etc.
Right.
um, it can be difficult for someone to admit that they've been abused or being abused,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all associated with like, one, they may have they did something wrong because it's their fault and it's something that they it's been perpetuated in the relationship, um, or they feel like it's a sign of weakness, which can be something culturally or society expectations about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they may be intimidated to stay in the relationship by verbal or physical threats, or threat that information about them, such as secrets or confidential information, may be shared with a lot of people. So,
Mm.
example, like let's say that an example would be like revenge porn, or let's say they're part of the LGBTQ plus population,
Right.
and they haven't come out yet. The their partner may threaten to out them out.
Mm. Oh.
Um, they may experience verbal abuse or shame during the physical abuse. So then essentially they would believe any sentiments that the person says. So like if they said it's your fault that I'm hitting you, or
Right.
it's your fault
Right.
because this is happening, they believe that
Wow.
and believe that it's their fault. So and when anything that does happen, it's about them. Like they did it because their
Mm-hmm.
partner said they did it.
Right.
Um, they may be financially dependent on their partner. So
Mm.
either they were not able to have a job, or they were denied the opportunity to get a job. Um, they may not have a place to live on their own. So if they don't have any money, they can't pay for um, their own
On their own.
apartment, house,
Right.
etc.
Right.
They may rely on their partner for language assistance, especially when we're talking about those who English is not their primary language.
Primarily. Yeah. Didn't think
Um,
about that. Mm.
yeah, or even if they're worried about immigration, so like they come to the United States, if they
Mm.
were to report the abuse happening, what's going to happen to
To
them?
them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I,
Let's see. I have more.
I'm just blown away. I'm just being honest, like just listening here, like, and these are things like a lot of times I think we as everyday, I don't want to say, I don't want to say that's abnormal or what, you know what I'm saying, but
Mhm,
as an everyday person, like listening, like these are things you just overlook, right?
mhm,
And I know you said there's so much more, but I mean it just is,
mhm,
it's really driving me to have to ask though, like, not to say what do you look for, but like what are some of the warning signs, I guess, that you know friends or family should be paying attention to, and what can friends or family maybe do uh to help someone maybe in those situations. Because I mean, my mind is just like going a million miles an hour as you're talking about it. So I'm just like, what can someone do to help?
I would say give the power and agency to that person, because they've already been in a relationship where someone else had power and control,
Mm,
giving them that autonomy to make choices,
mm-hmm.
just and you not um, inserting your own thoughts and beliefs about what they should do.
Right.
Um, Also, give them resources like the domestic violence hotline. There's a domestic in Virginia. There's multiple agencies that focus on domestic violence. So give them that number.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Listen to them, support
Mm,
them, validate them, and help them be seen, because oftentimes it's like avoided. Like, oh,
right.
especially when we talk about culture, like certain cultures, you the idea is you stay as a family regardless of what is happening
Mm,
with each
so true.
other,
Yeah.
and you just have to support that person, and you could give them options of things that they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key is really education,
Mm,
because oftentimes people don't know they're in a domestic violence situation until someone says this is domestic violence, or something bad happens where police are involved, and they will
yeah.
use the terminology of like domestic abuse.
Right. I hate. I mean, I asked that because that was the part that I was really leading up to. I don't, because a lot of times we, again, I won't say normal or abnormal, but we a lot of times what we see is the end result. Like, God forbid, someone's dead or maimed, uh, and I guess for us here in the DMV,
Mm-hmm,
and not to put you on the spot, what are there some local resources that maybe you can share that you know about, or maybe that you've used, that if someone is here, watching,
mm-hmm,
I'm not here to put anybody on the spot, but may be watching, that maybe needs that outlet, and like you said, doesn't have the education
mm-hmm.
or the knowledge of where to go. Like, if there are a couple of places here in the DMV that maybe you could share, or maybe recommend if someone does need help.
Yeah. So first, I would recommend the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, because on their so you can either call the hotline or you can go on their website, and their website has ton of information. And let's say if they're in a domestic violence situation and they don't want their partner viewing what they are looking at, there's ways that you can exit out of their page very quickly, so that they don't like
Hmm.
their partner doesn't see what they're doing. Um,
Right.
so in so there's so many different agencies across the DMV that does this work.
Hmm.
Um, so, like for example, in Prince William County, there's Action and Community Youth Service.
Okay.
They have domestic violence program as well as sexual violence program, and oftentimes they collide.
Hmm.
Um, in Loudoun County, there is laws. It's Loudoun. Oh gosh, I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but essentially they work and support women and provide support in counseling.
Hmm.
Is There's the Office of Women and Domestic and Sexual Violence Services in Fairfax County.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think. In DC, I'm not sure what the program is called, but if you call like the National Domestic Violence number, they will
Hotline.
route you to whatever your local resource is based on your county, your zip code,
Okay,
and state.
that's perfect. So there's a national 1-800 number, basically,
Mm-hmm,
that those who may need assistance can call, and
mm-hmm,
it'll route them to their local.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we try to put that information out there so people that know. But now, ironically, I don't know if it's ironic or not. Like, I heard you listing some of the names of the organizations and places that help.
mm-hmm.
Again, want to be sensitive here, but most of them I hear are geared or driven towards women who are abused. But there are men out here, and there is
Mm-hmm.
abuse
Yep.
towards men. Like, and
Yes.
it does come both the same way, though, right? Like, we do
Yes, it
have
does.
that same physical,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not talked about in that manner. And why do you think is that? Like, because it happens.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of different things. One, society's expectations for men,
Mm,
and people who look like men, um, and then also the fear of being seen as weak,
mm,
um,
mhm.
the fear of, let's say their partner is a woman, and fear that like they couldn't take care of it. That's often what I've heard from male clients I've had, or just like the emotional stuff that they have, like feeling depression, sad, anxiety, there's something that still gets pushed under,
Mhm.
and they don't admit. In some instance, they may feel blame and shame
Hmm.
about even admitting that something's wrong in
Wow.
their relationship,
Wow.
and they may like continue the relationship because of those perceptions and beliefs about themselves as a man, and as we talk about masculinity and the
Okay.
perspective of what it is to be a man and
Okay.
not have emotions and all of that, that all plays a role when we talk about if there are survivors of domestic violence.
Man, you're touching on so many points that like I have to, I'm asking the question, but like as a man, like I have to be, I guess, introspective of the
Mm-hmm.
response. Because I mean, I'm sitting here like, well, yeah, not to say clutching my pearls. I'm sitting here like, well, yeah, I guess I would feel that way if that were the case.
Yeah,
So it's so true. Men can experience that, and just listening, it really made me kind of go through that momentary experience.
yeah.
Um, so what I want to do, you know, we're kind of midway in our conversation, but I do want to come because we've talked about men and women,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the bigger picture that really lies in all of this domestic violence is our kids and the children.
Yes.
And what I want to do is just I want to step away for a minute. I know this is a very serious conversation, and for those of you who are here tonight who have joined, thank you. I see you. I see you in the woods. Thank you so much for being here. But I do want to step away. I want to take a short pause for the cause. I want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring tonight's episode and supporting Two Mics Up. And we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. All right, all right, all right. We are back out the break. We are back live Wednesday night. We are here with Sultana Kareem, who is of Kareem Counseling Services. Excuse me. She's a counselor here in the DMV, putting in great work, and she's been educating us the last 2 weeks. And tonight we're talking about domestic violence. And we talked about in the first half, about the abuse that both men and women do face, how it can occur, the economics of it, and really trying to draw out the assistance part or piece that we can kind of provide to people who may be in need of help. But I want to talk about I think the most important piece to the family, which is our children. Children are, I mean, you hear it all the time. The children are our future,
Mm-hmm.
and these are going to be the young men and women who are going to be really taking care of us at some point.
Yeah.
And I I have to ask, like how does, exposure to domestic violence really affect children or young adolescents? I'm just curious to know from your opinion and what maybe you've seen in your career.
Yeah. Well, first, I like to talk about the stat. It's 1 in 4 American children will
Jeez.
witness
Wow.
violence between their parents, and 90% of them who exposed to domestic violence either heard or actually experienced it themselves, like they saw it happening to their parent.
Mm,
Um, so if we talk about the short term kind of effects of domestic violence, there's like anxiety. So there's general anxiety about all things, or anxiety related to or separation anxiety from their parent.
mm,
Oftentimes, the parent who is the non-offender. They may have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep. They may have nightmares, difficulty concentrating. They may have high or low energy. Um, they may also be like very like hyper vigilant, or on edge. Uh,
mm,
there's an increased aggression. There's constant worries about their safety and their parent's safety, primarily the non-offending parent.
mm-hmm.
They may withdraw from social environments or interactions with others. You have to think about depending on when the child was exposed to the violence. So let's say in vitro, um, they they were exposed to the violence. It impacts their brain development because the brain develops right when they are developing it, as a fetus,
Right.
and they continue exposure as they come into the world, into newborn phase,
Wow.
childhood into adolescence. The constant exposure to domestic violence can alter the brain development essentially,
Mm.
and all these symptoms can be heightened for them. Um,
Phew.
and they
I,
cause a lot of developmental issues that a person like a child may have,
mm-hmm.
where if they're very hyper vigilant or have hyperactivity, they're unable to sit still, they can't concentrate, because they're like their body essentially is on an alert. There's
Right.
danger,
Right.
and nothing else matters. Not higher level of thinking, the part of the brain that pretty much the prefrontal cortex is offline, because there's danger. The environment is dangerous. There's no safety.
With you saying it, though, like it just, again, my mind gets to going because, like, sometimes though, again, and when our kids are in school,
Mhm,
um, teachers, professionals, sometimes even doctors, I'm going to even stretch. Like, our kids sometimes are they misdiagnosed because even like it sounds like sometimes even with domestic violence, a lot of times it's not that physical, right? Sometimes
mhm,
it may not be the child being abused, but like I said, just the visual of them seeing it or being exposed
mhm.
kind of creates that, like you said, the hyperactivity or things like that, because like maybe their minds are so perpetually in motion from what they've seen or been surrounded by.
Mhm.
Our kids get misdiagnosed, like, the ADHD or different things like that. Is that fair to say? Is like that's something that maybe you also see, or professionals just miss or dismiss?
Yeah, I think a lot of kids have been misdiagnosed with ADHD, and
Mm-hmm.
people didn't assess for the trauma that was happening in the environment, because the
Mm-hmm.
environment plays a significant role, especially
Right.
there's trauma.
Right.
And oftentimes, when we have kids who are exposed to domestic violence, oftentimes there is child abuse and neglect that are happening,
Mm.
either co-currently or one versus the other.
Wow.
So looking at the whole picture of like all the experiences that this child have, and then their response is normal response to abnormal situations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
That's- It's I'm mind blown, like literally, and
Yep.
and then so now then, like we've already, so we're talking about, so this is the early stages, right? That you're kind of focusing on, but then what happens? Let's say like long term,
Hmm.
what are the long term effects of witnessing domestic violence?
Yeah. So they can develop chronic health problems,
Wow.
because when we think about trauma and how it impacts the brain, if someone is experiencing a state of um, of pretty much fight or flight. Um, and they're at that constant state for extended period of time, it can cause different parts of the body to have issues. So they may
Mm-hmm.
develop like hypertension, high diabetes, chronic heart disease, um, or they may have behavioral problems in school. They may get into fines. They may have temperature tantrums, poor academic performance. They may run away from the home.
Right.
They may be involved in legal problems. Um, they themselves may be in dating or intimate partner relationships or
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy relationships with others.
Wow.
They may have risky behaviors, their own mental health issues that hasn't been addressed.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
it's so big.
I mean, it's beyond big. This it goes really deep.
Mhm.
And then though, so like I said, all of that then can carry over, or again, like when you hit the stats, 1 out of 4. I mean, that's 25%, right? That are
Mhm.
I guess I don't want to affected. But now that
Yeah.
25% though, God goodness sakes, they carry that, and I can only imagine what a powder keg would be if you have two individuals that are coming from these experiences and get together. You know, it's a powder keg waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But what does it really do? So let's say those two people or the individuals decide, not decide, but people get married or
Mhm.
have kids. What does that do, let's say, to their kids, or how do those kids then in turn look at maybe their parents? Because you have mentioned earlier, like,
Mhm.
the child may want to protect or defend, the person that wasn't the abuser,
Yeah.
right? Like how does that affect, like, what does that even carry on for a young child or person, maybe into another relationship or to them having kids?
Yeah. Well, I would say it depends on that child's environment. So if they had other adults that in which they do have healthy relationships with, or
Mm-hmm.
gave them the attention and met their needs, I've seen that those kids often will try to work through some of the things that they learned in childhood about relationships and try to make sure that their relationships aren't unhealthy and abusive.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas others who may not have that support, it oftentimes it repeats. It's like a
It's a
cycle
continuous cycle.
because there's is unlearned is the behaviors that they learned to have a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and which they're going to carry to every relationship they're in unless they realize it's an abusive or unhealthy behavior in relationships.
So it's just spin and
It can
repeat.
be a multi-generational like
Jeez.
issue.
Wow. Mm, mm, mm. I So even in that, right? I'm what's the word? I guess the treatment aspect or the treatment side
Mhm.
of young children being exposed. Like, are there any unique treatments or things that can be done to kind of help them? For those who've been exposed.
Yeah. So if I'm working with either a child or a teenager, I tend to use more of expressive arts, play therapy, and follow trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy
Mm-hmm.
in helping them, one, to navigate their own feelings, because oftentimes they're not taught that and they
Right.
are dysregulated and don't know, like, have healthy coping mechanisms in place to help them process and feel their feelings instead of
Mm-hmm.
numbing, using substance to numb or just politely numb their feelings, not have that emotional response. um, and then teaching healthy relationships. What does a healthy relationship look like?
Mm-hmm.
What are unhealthy relationships, and kind of talking about the green and red flags
Mm.
of relationships and giving examples. I tend to use lots of books with kids and adolescents that
Right.
has different stories about different people's experiences And so we will talk about as we go read through the book together, like, what is this? What is, for example, Mary experiencing?
Right.
How are you feeling about what she's going through?
It's even interesting that you said it because that could be something though that even I guess folks who haven't been
Mhm.
in domestic violence situations could really use to learn though. And again, because what you're talking about, and I think what's really important when we walk away from this series is creating safe space for conversation. Because even in
Mhm.
our own homes, a lot of times, even though those who were not in any type of domestic or sexual abuse
Yep.
we don't really have that conversation. Like, what does a normal, healthy relationship look like?
Yep.
And what does it look like? What does a healthy, happy marriage look like?
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
that's kind of been my takeaway as I'm listening, because that can help so many people.
Hmm.
And I'm just curious, like, for you and your service though, on the counseling side, is that something that you also do, even for those who are not, let's say, in any type of abusive situation? Is that something that you also provide services to?
Yeah, I do help some of my clients like with communication,
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes they either don't communicate about things
Mm-hmm.
or they communicate but they are missing the intimacy piece of like that emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about how can we work together so that one, you're voicing what you need with from your partner, but also having realistic expectations, because also our partners are not supposed to do all things for us. We
Right.
like our partner is our partner, and then you may have friends who may feel different parts for you, and understanding like that one person is not everything.
Right. And I want to make sure that we understand though that that is healthy. That is
It
a
is
healthy thing
healthy
to
to
have. That
have.
is a healthy
Yeah,
thing to have.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's not, you have a relationship, but it's not that relationship, but it's
Hmm.
healthy to have, and it's
Healthy
okay to have.
relationship. Yes, yes.
Okay. And I would be remiss because so you've been kind enough to sit here with me for the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and you've opened up and you've educated so much. But so Todd, I have that. Do you have a counselor? Because sometimes some of the things that
Yes.
you spend, yeah, it's got to
I
be
have
heavy, right?
two.
Oh, okay.
I have an EMDR therapist, and then I have an individual talk therapist.
And what is that really? And again, because I really want people to understand the importance as a professional. Like, really, what does that do for you, and what does that mean for you? When you're having a rough day or a rough time, like, because I think it's important that we hear that from the people that we're really entrusting ourselves to. Because I think that makes you more, and this is just me speaking, makes you more human. It makes you
Yes.
more
Yeah.
relatable.
Yep.
But for your mental health, like, what does that do for you at the end of the day?
Well, it does a lot of different things. It helps. So I have a life too outside of being a therapist.
Right.
And sometimes like it's hard and I
Right.
need someone to talk to, even though like I have this training experience, but it's different hearing it from someone else.
Mhm.
Because I can tell myself all day, like, hey, you're gonna be fine, but I'm not fine.
Right.
And I need someone to like sometimes I need someone to just vent all the
Right.
things, and it may not always be my friends. They may not have
Right.
availability, or my partner, he may be away.
Right.
And I need someone just to talk through, or if
Right.
something's triggering me, because
Right.
I'm also I had do have a history of trauma.
Mhm.
Like I need
Wow.
someone to be able to help me cope and
Mhm.
process my feelings, instead of, because I tend to avoid,
Right.
or
Wow.
I numb my feelings just like we all do, or I dissociate, like I just like blank out and
That's powerful that you even say, because I think that's real. And now, again, having the pleasure of getting to know you, I see where the power from and the passion comes from, because you said something very important. Having experienced trauma
hmm.
for
Yep,
yourself,
yep.
um, really uh shines through in your passion and the
Hmm.
way that you talk. So I
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that, because I think that is a huge, again, I don't want to make a negative a part, but it is a plus.
Hmm.
And I know you probably share that with your clients. Um, and I hope that by by you being here and those who are experiencing anything, they can see and know that anything is possible.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just all about getting the help, sometimes that we all need,
Hmm.
to get from a dark spot
Yep.
and to get to where we are tonight, like we're so lovingly talking about love and light. You are an amazing person, and I thank you.
Yes.
And before we close out, um, this second part of the conversation, which has been amazing, what are you uh, looking for? Because we're going into the holidays, and
Hmm.
I want to end on a very light note.
Yeah.
So for you in the holidays, like what are your plans? You have any family plans? You have any fun? Is there anything that we can expect from you from Kareem Counseling Services? Uh, like, come on, what are you looking forward to for the new year?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different events that are happening the next couple of months. One of them being my birthday.
Okay, all right,
I'll
birthday
be
girl
turning
coming.
32 this year.
Okay, 23. She said 23. Right, all right, all right, all right. Woo!
And I usually have like family gatherings every holiday. They often come to my house since I have a little one. And we just kind of bathe her in all the things holiday related. And
Nice,
her birthday
nice.
is actually a couple of days before Christmas. So it's like a
Wow.
double holiday for
Oh, that's beautiful.
her.
That's
So it's a
amazing.
lot of things happening.
Uh, it is that time. So I had to, say I have two two amazing Sagittarian women in my life,
Yeah.
and December is a busy time for us. So uh, I look forward to the holidays. I look forward to, like you said, being with the family.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. The pandemic had put a halt on some things. We used to love throwing holiday parties, and I don't mean just I mean holiday parties. I'm talking about a couple of hundred people. Breakfast, yeah, yeah. So now that we're kind of coming out of, my wife and I think we're getting the itch. It might not be this year, but
Yeah.
hopefully, sometimes we'll get back to that as we move forward with the pandemic. But I do want to say to you, Sultana, continue success in everything that you do. You are a true diamond in our backyard, and I hope that
Oh,
all of our listeners and our audience, if you haven't watched this tonight, or if you are watching this tonight, please share uh, these episodes,
mm-hmm.
share these conversations. But most importantly, I want to allow Sultana, before you go, and I will make sure that we also put it in the notes,
Yeah.
that you leave your social media information and where people can contact you,
Mm-hmm.
because you are, like I said, you're a diamond in the rough in our community, and I
Yes.
really think you're amazing. So thank you,
Yeah. Thank you.
and please share your
Yeah.
social media information.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Kareem Counseling. You can also find me at my website at www.kareemcounseling.org. You can contact me by phone. I'm trying to think, remember my name, my phone number. I think it's 571-749-9845. Or you can email me at skarim@kareemcounseling.org.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fantastic conversation with another fantastic guest. Look, you don't have to go any further here. Two mics up. We try to keep you in the know, keep you in the know, and we try to really delve into some serious topics the last 2 weeks. Really felt that it was important that we really challenge myself,
Yeah.
stretch myself,
Yeah.
because we talk about these things at home,
Hmm.
um, amongst my family, and trying to be as authentic as possible and really talk about things that I think we all talk about sometimes behind closed doors and just are too afraid to
Hmm.
talk about. So I want to be able to do it here in a safe place, safe space for all of you. So I hope you all enjoyed. Um, I do want to say before we go, there's a couple of things that I wanted to share. Here, two mics up. We like to be community connected. We like to think of ourselves as being committed to creating something great. This portion is brought to you by our friends over at TD3 Insurance. Hey, look, Check out these three businesses: Gentara LLC, Riddick Entertainment and Events, and TD3 Insurance. Three of the best businesses in our area. Go check them out. If you are a business owner and you're looking to elevate your brand, you need presentation services, social media, advertising opportunities, holla at Two Mics Up. You know, we're taking them on. It's not too late. We're still taking on new sponsors. And next week, prepare your business for the holidays. I'm going to be hosting an event with the Virginia Black Business Directory. You can get all the information on Eventbrite. It'll be next Wednesday, October 26th. So check out our friends over at the Virginia Black Business Directory. Go ahead and find that information on Eventbrite. Eventbrite is totally free. So go ahead, register, come hang out with me, hang out with some of the business partners that will be coming down, talking about preparing yourself for the holidays. Because be honest with you, Dame's not ready for the holidays. Two Mics Up anyway, not this year. But be there. We're going to have some fun. And ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do as we close out. You can follow Two Mics Up online, www.twomicsup.com. You can follow us across all our social media, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. And hey, if you are watching this on YouTube, that's cool. But like right now, we are actually on the Moguls TV. Drop that right there. So check us out on the Moguls TV. Brand new episodes coming to you each and every Monday night. Next Monday, or this coming Monday, I should say, we're talking about the elections. We're talking about ballot boxes. And when I say ballot box, I'm talking about My Balbo. I'm going to be joined by Jonathan, and Stacy Celestine of My Balbo. Brand new app that's going to help change the game when it comes to voting. I hope you guys tune in Monday. Come enjoy the conversation. And like we always do at this time, ladies and gentlemen, may you stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out. 007.